is a competent cybersecurity professional with expertise on identity and access management, application security, and security information security management. Since the beginning of her career, she has donned many hats from being a consultant to engineer and now an instructor. She is a strong advocate of bringing diversity and inclusion to workplaces to promote women professionals in the industry. She aims to help in provisioning a continuous cybersecurity learning experience to women throughout their careers. She is a founder of Cyber Preserve and Breaking Barriers Women in Cybersecurity Lean-In Circle and has been part of communities such as OWASP and InfoSec Girls. She's a remarkable human being, a budding entrepreneur, and an amazing person. I would request our guest speaker Asta to please come on stage.
Thank you so much, Shashi, and thank you so much, Nehal, for the wonderful introduction for all the speaker lineup today. And thank you so much, Shashi, for your wonderful words. So I think we are ready to go for the session. I'll share my screen. So can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. So today we are basically going to talk about cybersecurity integration and with machine learning or cybersecurity in data science. So before we start with that, I would like to give a brief introduction about myself. Though Shashi and Nehal already have given an introduction, I'll just quickly walk through it and then we'll start with the session. So I'm currently working as a lead cybersecurity instructor at Flatiron School, New York, and I have started two initiatives. One is Cyber Preserve, which is a YouTube channel as well as a mentorship program in cybersecurity. And I started a Lean and Circle early this year in January 2021. At the end of January 2021, I started a Lean in Circle, which actually focuses on building more women in leadership role and also helps women break into cybersecurity. I'm also a committee member for OWASP Women in AppSec, and I have been associated with InfoSec Girls as well. Talking about the session for today, so we have an agenda lined up. First of all, we are going to talk about what is cybersecurity. Why? Because we are going to now connect the dots among what is cyber, how it can be connected to machine learning, and how we can utilize machine learning and data science into cybersecurity operations. So we are going to start with intro to cyber, big data, challenges, machine learning to the rescue. What is machine learning? What are the various types? What are the specific terms we need to know before we start exploring this area? Let's say for research, let's say you're reaching out to some vendor, you want machine learning to be integrated in your current security operations. So before you do that, before you reach out, before you start exploring this area, it's important to know the nitty-gritties of machine learning. Then we are going to also involve Python into it because Python is a powerful programming language and it has a wide amount of role to play in cybersecurity, automation, and machine learning. Finally, we are going to cover some of the ground truths, some of the challenges that we have with machine learning. Then the following conclusions that are ground truths and some of the use cases as well, how we can apply machine learning in cybersecurity. And finally, we are going to conclude it with a smart architecture that we can utilize in building up a better machine learning integrated cybersecurity operation architecture. So first of all, what we are trying to do in cybersecurity. So in a very basic terms, we try to understand cyber attacks and we come up with defensive measures or offensive measures. Two types of measures are there. But at the end of the day, the goal is to be defensive. The goal is to prevent attacks from taking place, detect attacks at early stages. And why do we do so? Because we are living in the era of digital world, and in digital world, we are so much like we are storing data online. We are exchanging data online. So cybersecurity becomes critical when your data is online and how we are protecting that data on an online environment, which can be unsafe as well. Cybersecurity works on three pillars, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality deals with the factor that, let's say we have a particular resource. Let's say there is an application online and you're trying to access that application. So confidentiality ensures that only right kind of people who have the right to access that application, it remains accessible to them. It remains confidential. The data which you're trying to access via that application is confidential to right kind of audience. Integrity means whatever data we are exchanging on a public internet, it is not hampered, it is not modified. It is basically, when we talk about integrity, we also talk about encryption, basically protecting your data online when you are transferring information, so that somebody in the middle of your communication between sender and receiver should not be able to modify or tamper that data. Availability is very simple factor. Anything which should be available to a customer, let's say a particular website should be available to you whenever you're trying to access it on a public internet. So if you have an account, you have a, let's say you have a username, and you have an account on a particular application, and you access it every day, and one day you're not able to access it. What does this mean? This means it's not available. So availability means that if a particular data, resource, application, if it should be available to specific set of audience, they should be able to access it. So cybersecurity works on three basic pillars, which is CIA triad, and we try to protect information based on implementing these three pillars in the form of our, let's say, policies, procedures, tools, applications, frameworks, and whatnot. Now, when we talk about digital world, big data is something that you must have heard of a lot. Many people are like maybe very much familiarized with big data because they might be working in the field, they have studied about it, but at the same time, many people do not know about what is big data. So big data in simple terms is nothing but the wide amount of great variety, great volume, great value of information which is traveling across the internet every second. Now, this information has been increasing considerably from the past 10 years since the inception of the digital world. Since the time we started using internet more, we all switched our applications, we switched different types of usages. So let's say earlier you used, if you want to, let's say, order food, so you used to call restaurant. Now we have different applications, different apps, mobile apps through which you can order food. So now our dependency on internet or digital platform is increasing, due to which not only things becomes more accessible, easy, but at the same time we have a wide amount of data which is just traveling across the internet every second, and that number is more than petabytes even now. So it started with, let's say, if in 1 second the data is coming in the volume of gigabytes, then like megabytes, gigabytes, and now petabytes, and even more than that. So the data that has been traveling to internet is of variety. So social media data, specific applications data, so companies data, we have so much data with different formats which is traveling. So the variety becomes different, the velocity becomes different, the value that we are extracting from data is also different. So when we talk about big data, it means the large volume of data that we are handling right now over the internet. And big data is associated with 5 V's, which is velocity, variety, volume, veracity, and volume. So what happens is, data is coming with high velocity, different variety, means we have structured data, we have unstructured data, we have semi-structured data. So that, what does that mean? This means, does data has a format? It doesn't have a format. Let's say, very quick, easy example. If you extract Twitter tweets using APIs, which is application programming interface, it comes in a very unstructured format. But at the same time, if you access any application data via some database, let's say structured database like SQL, then it's in a structured format. So how your data is traveling across public internet, that is something which is unpredictable. It has a vast amount of variety. The volume is huge. The veracity and the value. So veracity and value are associated with the truthfulness of the data that is being traveled on the internet, and what value we can retrieve out of that data. So let's say I have a chunk of data that I have collected via internet using APIs, let's say. When I collect that data, what's the value it is offering to me? It's not like whatever data you collect will offer you 100%. You might have to filter that data and extract the necessary information. Now, once we have talked about this big, huge amount of data, which is big data, now let's talk about cybersecurity and big data together. Now, due to increase in digitization and Internet of Things, so Internet of Things is your refrigerator, your toaster, your coffee maker, every machine on every device at your home is capable of interacting with internet. It's capable of interacting and providing you some data. So in this generation, when cyber attacks are increasing, they're continuously evolving, and I don't even have to, let's say, justify this information, because every day you'll see a cyber news coming. There is a cyber attack, there is ransomware, there is different types of zero-day attacks taking place. Now, what's happening is when the number of attacks are increasing and our dependencies heavily on the digitization, now cybersecurity and big data comes together. Why? Because in an organization where cybersecurity professionals, they are working every day to identify threats, respond to threats, and remediate threats,
Hello.
in those environments,
Hello.
um, is there any issue, Nehal? Okay. So, as I was saying, when cybersecurity professionals, they are working every day to detect, to remediate, and respond to cyber attacks, they're actually dealing with this big data over the internet, because the data which is traveling on the digital world is actually the big data. Now, big data has too much volume, too much variety, too much veracity and variety, and let's say volume and velocity associated with it, due to which it becomes a complex thing for handling. Now, a simplest example of big data with respect to cybersecurity is malware executables, which were known to cybersecurity community. In 2010, they were like less than 50 million. In 2012, they increased to 100 million, and in 2019, there were more than 936 million malware executables which were known to cybersecurity community. So when you have too much information with you that you need to process or put it to value, and specifically when we are heavily dependent on digital world, cybersecurity operations become more critical. At the same time, when we are dealing with such vast variety of information, it does take time to process, it does take time to provide you some value, and that's where your machine learning comes to the rescue. That's where, with the help of machine learning, we try to automate some of our day-to-day tasks that our cybersecurity analysts or engineers that they do every day. So with the help of machine learning, we try to create frameworks, we try to create real-time algorithms which can help us in better in the better handling of incidents, specifically when we are dealing with too much of big data. Now, when coming to machine learning, it becomes important to understand that machine learning comes from artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is actually a broader area where we talk about how machines can mimic human behavior like robots. Machine learning is actually part of artificial intelligence, where we put to use two types of machine learning algorithms. What is supervised and unsupervised? And what does these machine learnings help us in doing? They help us predict and classify. So there is a difference between classification and predicting. Predicting means you predict something with the help of data, and classification means you tell about the classes of data. Let's say we have a simple positive affirmative sentence that today is a sunny day, which is a positive sentence. So using machine learning, how can we classify that the particular sentence is positive or negative? So that becomes the classification. And predicting, like if you have some data and predicting that that data can be malicious, that becomes part of machine learning predictiveness. Then under machine learning, we have something known as deep learning. So the first layer is artificial intelligence. Inside artificial intelligence, we have machine learning, and inside machine learning, we have something known as deep learning. In deep learning, what do? Is we use unsupervised machine learning technology, and under that unsupervised machine learning, we have something known as deep learning, where we are trying to implement neuron-based learning mechanisms so that we can predict attacks based on the data that we are feeding to algorithms. So we are going to discuss machine learning also, basically deep learning as well as one of the examples of machine learning as we proceed further. As of now, we need to understand the two types more in details. What do they do? So in supervised learning, what happens is so consider machine learning something as your brain. So when you are a child and when you learn some new concepts, your parents, they teach you about alphabets, they teach you about numbers, they teach you about the general etiquettes. So what happens is initially you don't know anything, but once you are trained and you're continuously trained with certain amount of information, you learn it. And when in future you exhibit that situation, you try to perform as you are trained. That is something supervised learning is doing, where we first provide the machine learning algorithm a training data. It learns via training data, and then once the machine has learned what the training data is, how to predict results via that training data, then we can provide more data to it, which is not a training data, but the data that we want machine to classify information into something. That becomes supervised. Unsupervised learning is like a self-learning. Here, you are not required to provide a training data. The algorithm will take in data and will try to process that information on its own to predict results. And that's the beauty of unsupervised learning. And we are also going to cover some important facts about unsupervised learning, especially when we are dealing with advanced level threats, where we have no idea about how these advanced threats might be evolving in future. So there is two things. One is you can predict something, and other where you cannot predict. So especially in today's era when cyber attacks are continuously evolving all the time, it's very difficult to product, like basically very difficult to predict what are the tactics, techniques, and procedures that can be used by an attacker. So let's say they change certain techniques in implementing certain attack strategies. And what if we are not able to predict it? What if we are not able to detect it before time and then it becomes too late? So unsupervised machine learning plays a very important role there, and we are going to cover that very shortly. Moving on, there are some major examples of supervised machine learning, which like basically under supervised machine learning, we have specific algorithms that are used in our security operations. So there are three major ones. One is logical regression, second is decision tree, and the third is XGBoost. All three of them have different implementation, but they work on the principle of supervised machine learning, which means they will need training data. An important concept, as I was stating about machine learning, was classification. Now, what happens is, as I was talking about supervised machine learning, we provide some training data to machine learning algorithms. So if you can look at the diagram on the right hand side, you can see we have something known as training, and then a B part is there, which is prediction. So what happens is, first you provide a training data with label. Label means, let's say you are providing 10 sentences to the machine learning algorithms, and these 10 sentences have some sentences which are positive, which are negative. When you provide these sentences to machine learning algorithm, it starts to learn. It picks up words that, oh, if this sentence is positive, let me pick up those words so that if I encounter similar words in future, I can classify that sentence into a particular category. So the one category is training and the other is prediction. So once the algorithm is trained, then you feed data to it so that it can predict certain results for you. And that is known as classification. So that it can classify as, let's say, positive, negative, or neutral. Or depending upon your data, the classes can be anything. This is just an example I'm taking from types of sentences, but the classes can be anything depending on what type of data it is. Then unsupervised learning. As I was talking about unsupervised learning, it's more about how we learn information by ourselves. So you perceive something you don't know, but you learn, you try to understand that, and then you try to predict it. That becomes unsupervised learning. Under unsupervised learning, two approaches becomes very important in our cyber operations. One is clustering, and other we are going to cover is deep learning. Now, in clustering, what happens is, using clustering type of machine learning algorithm, what happens in clustering is it tries to put similar data in similar samples. So let's say when data comes in and we have three, let's say groups A, B, and C. So what it tries to do is it tries to put data in different clusters, cluster A, cluster B, cluster C, depending upon how similar they are to particular three types of groups. Now, an example of this is, if someone is trying to breach your network, there is a good chance that they will try many times before they actually get through. So let's say somebody is trying to brute force a system in your network. When they are trying to brute force your system, they will try to perform authentication. They will try to use multiple username and passwords until they get one through which they become successful. So before a successful authentication, there are multiple failed authentications. So those multiple failed authentications, they become part of one cluster. That's one real-time example. Now, in real life, how you can imagine what is clustering. So let's say here is a sample in front of you on the left-hand side. It has different types of potatoes. And now we have classified them in different groups, if you can see, of different colors. And that's what clustering is doing. It's creating different groups for us. The next one is unsupervised machine learning. Under unsupervised machine learning, it's deep learning. Now, deep learning is based on how our human brain works, how neurons, biological neurons, how they work in our brain. So what happens is, first of all, deep learning is still an active area in machine learning. So there are current researches which are going on so that we can better utilize this area, how we can explore this better, how we can advance in this area. But the overall way of how this particular unsupervised machine learning works is, it takes data in the form of input layer, then it applies some logic in the hidden layer and then provides you output. Now, this hidden layer can be thought of internal neurons. So let's say in your brain, one neuron intercepted certain information. It will pass this information to other neurons in your brain with the help of chemical messages. And through this, from one neuron to another neuron to another neuron in different parts of your brain, the information gets processed. And if I go back to the previous slide, this is what's happening in the hidden layer. The logic is being processed so that your input data can be processed into somewhat output. So how your brain perceives a new information and tries to predict if it's good, if it's bad, if you have to say yes, if you have to say no in those scenarios, your neurons process that information in different parts of your brain so that you can process some results and answer it. And in similar terms, deep learning is also working. Now comes the Python part and the data analytics part. So what is Python? To anybody who do not know Python, it's a high-level programming language. It's an interpreted language, unlike C, C++, which requires compilation and then interpretation. This is an interpreted language, very simple. It works on it's highly dependent on indentation, where when you use the code, but highly readable, easy to understand. Anybody who's new to programming and they want to start with the language, Python is the one. And specifically when data science and cybersecurity, both the areas are growing consequently and they are going to integrate at some point for sure, Python is a good way to start. Now, how Python can be useful to us? First of all, as I said, it's utilized in machine learning, data visualization. In general, for developers, it is used in web development or application development. In security, we highly use Python for automation, scripting. In machine learning as well, we highly use Python a lot. How we use it, I'll show you what types of libraries are there. But before that, we are going to look at a diagram of data visualization using Python. So on the right-hand side, there is a code where we have used pandas and pylab libraries. Using them, what we have done is we had some Twitter data in the form of tweets, which were filtered using like Python libraries like RE. So we first filtered that data, then use that data in the form of CSV. So what we did was we read the file data using pandas, and then using Matplotlib, we plotted that data. Now, when you plot this data, so for you're seeing here is known as a bar chart, but you can create a pie chart, you can create a line chart, you can create an area chart, because pandas comes with different forms of data visualization, through which, let's say, you are analyzing a malware. I'm giving a very simple example. You're analyzing malware and its behavior at different amount of times, let's say from morning to afternoon. So when you plot your time in x-axis and your data in y-axis, the number, how the behavior, let's say, increased. So when you are analyzing malware, you can utilize this kind of data visualization, because for us as human, we perceive more to visualization. We perceive more to graphics and picture rather than text. So when you are, let's say, analyzing logs, you're analyzing some sample, data visualization becomes a very, very important part. Moving on to some of the important libraries that we can utilize with the help of Python, specifically when focus is on data visualization and machine learning. So there are pandas, which I just show you. We had NumPy. sklearn has different types of machine learning algorithms that we can use. PE file, ngrams are, again, these two are focused on natural language processing, which we call as NLTK. So as I said, our focus is like majorly on this particular presentation is how to use machine learning. There are different Python libraries, variety of them, which you can use for cybersecurity operations specifically. So for that, we have libraries like sockets, requests, we have Machinize, we have Metasploit. So different types of libraries are focused for specific cyber operations. But here our focus is on machine learning and how we can utilize different types of machine learning, let's say, implementation in our operation. So Python is also one of them. Then comes application of machine learning in cybersecurity. So let's say, okay, we understood like we can use machine learning. We understood what is machine learning, what are types, what are different types of specific learnings that we can use in our cybersecurity operations. But how at the end of the day it is going to help us in our day-to-day work. So first of all, we can utilize machine learning for recognizing threats, classifying different types of patterns. In future, we are going to integrate machine learning also into our application code review, risk assessment, identification, remediation. All in all, we are going to utilize machine learning for detection, for some prediction, and of course, optimization. Because when we already have a cybersecurity skill gap, so how we are going to fill that skill gap? Of course, through more awareness, through educating more into this, educating more people into this field. But at the same time, since we have the gap, how we are going to fulfill that gap? So here, automation can really help. So machine learning can help in your, let's say, initial analysis, initial predictions. So it can save a lot of time that you are going to manually spend and in your day-to-day job. So optimization is for sure there. Next is, let's look at some attack scenarios where you can utilize machine learning. So the very first one is, see, most of the time when now there are so many attacks that we are always suspicious what's going to happen. Let's say for every file that is sent through your network, there is always a question like, does it contain a malware? Then every login attempt, which is a failed one, let's say I am trying to log in and I'm a company's employee. I'm trying to log in into my system multiple times and it's failing. But this can also be a chance that somebody else is trying to log into my system and trying to brute force. I received an email from different vendors, or let's say different clients. Who knows what an email holds? It might be a phishing email too. Also, every request that's sent to your application server can be a denial of service request. So how to predict different types of attack scenarios? How do we do that? It's mostly based on behavior and it's mostly based on previous activities. And that's what machine learning is doing. Analyzing behavior, analyzing previous activities so that it can predict and classify for you. Now, one of the examples that we are going to discuss is malware analysis. In malware analysis, one of the important things to realize is there are different types of malwares which are reaching different types of victims every day. Now, when we are trying to apply malware analysis using machine learning, what do we need? So machine learning has three key implementation. One is fuzzy matching, second is automatic selection, and third is adaptive response. These three things are very important when we are working with malware analysis, and specifically when we are trying to predict some unknown threats or advanced level threats. So fuzzy matching means when we are talking about clustering, like how your machine learning algorithms can put similar things in similar groups. Then automatic selection. Automatic selection is in case of deep learning and clustering, as different amount of information is perceived or it is received by machine learning algorithms, how they are automatically changing weights of different variables while they are predicting results. Because information is going to change. Different malwares will have different behaviors, different types of data. How algorithms are automatically going to adjust their selection so that their prediction remains automatic. Then adaptive response. Adaptive response and automatic selection, they're very closely related, because machine learning algorithms in future, definitely they have to become more adaptive, because as the cyber threat landscape is evolving and different types of attacks are taking place every day. Attackers are going and they are going to find out ways through which they want to go completely unpredicted. And in those scenarios, our machine learning algorithms have to become adaptive to different types of information that they are going to receive, process, and predict. When it comes to malware, how we can collect data, how we can collect data about different types of malware and feed it to our machine learning algorithms, be it supervised or non-supervised. So one of the major examples is Kaggle. So first of all, Kaggle is widely known in data science community. It's a data science competition website. It's also used for creating some online data models as well. On this website, different types of data science competitions takes place. So when competition takes place, and we use Kaggle for online data modeling as well, Kaggle has a lot of data sets. And not just because it's a data science based community, it also has cyber related data. There are multiple competitions which are being posted by big tech organizations where they are asking people to utilize Kaggle as a platform, take part in competitions, and help these organizations in identifying malwares. So Kaggle is one of the major sites which has different amounts of samples. Then we have something known as VX7, we have Virus Total, we have malware threat traffic analysis. So different websites and different platforms which are specifically focusing on malware analysis, they can be a major source of providing majority of samples. Those samples basically becomes the knowledge for the machine, because any of these sites, if they have knowledge about different malwares, definitely it's a knowledge base for the machine learning algorithms. The more data, the more unique data, the more diverse data you fed to machine learning algorithms, the more they become more intelligent, more adaptive, and the more you provide different kinds of information from time to time, their learning improves, their accuracy will improve from time to time. So it becomes important, especially in case of supervised machine learning, that we provide time to time data so that machine learning algorithms can train themselves. Same in the case of unsupervised machine learning, because in case of unsupervised, we are learning on our own. When we are learning on our own, we need time to process. So the main point is unsupervised learning is a bit slow. It takes time. And supervised learning wants data. You may have to retrain your machine learning algorithm from time to time so that your results of predictions, they become more accurate. Now, what are some of the problems that you might going to face when we are dealing with machine learning data? One of the major problem is bias. Bias is when your data set contains information about a specific class of data more and another class of data is less. So let's say among male and female, let's say we have a population related data. So by default, if the data that you have for overall population is biased towards one side of gender, then when you're trying to perform some statistics, the results are always going to be biased. Same goes with the data that you're trying to apply for security operations. If your data is biased, your machine learning algorithm will always predict results for that biased data more, and the data which is in minority, that data will be neglected or might not be predicted in a more accurate form. Second important thing is label accuracy. Label accuracy is when you are providing training data, label that data properly. Label means provide their class properly. Because when you are providing training data, in that process, you are not only providing data, you are providing their labels as well. Label means their classes. So if you're inaccurately labeling it, the machine will perceive it wrong and the results would be affected consecutively. Next thing is missing data. This is one of our biggest problem, missing data. If you're not providing accurate information, there is some missing information, the machine is going to predict information inaccurately. So always when we are working with machine level data, we have to take care of these things, that there is no bias, there is no minority or majority class, labels are correct, there is no missing data. If there is missing data, we might have to do a lot of things we have to redo a lot of things, because if the missing data contains, let's say, specific features, because in machine learning we use a term known as features, and using features it predicts results. So features are like tags to that particular class. Like let's say if I'm saying a day is good or sunny, and that statement is positive. So sunny, good, these are the words, these are the features that machine has picked up in order to predict it. So if the data is missing, results are going to be inaccurate. You might have to retrain again. Now, we have discussed problems which can come with when we are using machine learning. Now let's look at what are the ground truths while we are utilizing machine learning in our security operations. First of all, there is no real standard data for different data sets. So let's say if I go back to the example of malware data sets, we have picked up some of the sites or frameworks which are available, but nobody has said or nobody has confirmed or nobody has standardized data sets for different types of attacks. Let's say ransomware related data set, any other malware related data sets, let's say phishing related data set, then denial of service related data sets. So there is no standard data set on which we can rely on. We are trying to find more data from public, from public platforms, or let's say via communities, like companies also have communities. So through communities, through open platforms, which is open source intelligence, we are trying to gather data, but there is no standard data set. That's the problem. When you don't have a standard data set, you always might be in a situation of, let's say, bias, or let's say other thing is missing data. That can be a major problem. Then the next thing is, as I was saying, unsupervised machine learning, they're learning on their own. So deep learning is one of the examples. They are slow to learn. They take time to learn, and when they take time to learn, they process results accordingly, and then that can become a problem for us because it's slow, and it's very complex to set up deep learning right now, and it's expensive as well. Supervised machine learning, they require time to time retraining. This is what I said. If the data is missing, or let's say after 2 to 3 years or an year, if your machine learning models start to predict inaccurate results, the solution would be retraining. So right now, when we have no standard data set, we are not sure if we have accurate information or not, or if we have, let's say, sufficient information or not, or in that manner, we may have to retrain our models a lot. So one of the major ground truths and conclusions become that adapting to evolving nature of cyber threat landscape more efficiently is the key to future detection and prediction methods. So machine learning algorithms have to become more adaptive, faster than automatic selection of features, and of course fuzzy matching. So these factors becomes very important when we are dealing with advanced level threats in future, and of course as of now as well. So as we are dealing with threats right now, they are going to evolve and they are going to become more advanced. So we have to reach that place where our algorithms, they become more efficient. We have some standard data sets. That's where we need to move in future. Last but not the least, this is one of the research paper I was researching and like I was reading, and it was a very great paper on how we can how we can include machine learning in our cybersecurity systems and services. Basically, in our cyber infrastructure and architecture, how we can include machine learning. So what happens is, first at the bottom level, we collect data. Okay. Then once we collect data, we then try to normalize or filter that data. Once that data is filtered, then we try to put that data into machine learning algorithms, and then these algorithms, they try to provide us some result which can help us in, let's say, decision making, response, any kind of future improvements. So in future, we are looking forward to build this kind of an infrastructure where in our security operations, not only we are using our current security tools and frameworks and policies, we are also incorporating machine learning in our day-to-day operations and in a more efficient manner. So one of the most important things before we end this session is that machine learning algorithms, like in many tools, you will see that they are using machine learning. There are many frameworks or many tools in the market, you will see that they offer machine learning. One thing that you need to check with the vendor is you need to ask them question like what type of machine learning algorithms they are using, what are their types, like are they using supervised or unsupervised? If they are using both, what are the specific categories of machine learning algorithm, let's say decision tree, XGBoost, deep learning, clustering. So what type of machine learning algorithms they are using? how these algorithms are going to help you in your data, because different algorithms will be effective for, let's say, different types of security operations. So it's not like that if somebody is offering a fancy framework which says it applies machine learning, doesn't mean that it will be applicable 100% in your security operations. So you need to have that basic knowledge that how your algorithms work, how my data works, what is my current needs, and what algorithms can provide us more accurate results. And with this, I can conclude my session, and thank you for joining me today.
Yes, thank you very much for this wonderful lineup of your ideas, and actually the way you brought together the data science and cybersecurity. Right, it was very nice, because everybody is thinking that data science is just for a business purpose or business reports, but cybersecurity solutions do use data science, including our Rainbow Secure's access governance platform and our AI monitoring threat intel that we provide. So yes, it's very important for career professionals and also the new students who are just entering this area. They should be learning the methodologies, different algorithms, and as you just said, that one size doesn't fit all, right? You have to understand how the algorithm, which algorithm is used, how it is deployed. It's very essential. We got very
Yeah.
great comments in the chat, and many people are asking about when somebody is choosing data science as a career, what are the different job opportunities. So I think they would now have got an idea that yes, cybersecurity is also an area where if even if you're a data scientist, you can have a career.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I think if you are going for data science, there are different types of jobs. And of course, cybersecurity is one area where you can eventually integrate into.
Yes, yeah.
And
There was
follow
a
by that question, where to start? If
yes.
So,
someone wants to career in a data science,
mm-hmm.
where to start?
So,
Because
mm-hmm.
like someone is like a study, then it's easy to take a subject. But if they are join now in their career, how they can move?
If they want to switch the career, okay, yeah, that's how you
Yeah.
can answer it.
So if somebody wants to switch, as I said, when you, let's say, here, if you want to start with data science, you first have to go with what is data science. Under data science, what specific area comes. So let's say you start with AI, but under AI, what you want to learn, because AI has different areas. Many times people confuse AI with machine learning, but it's just a part of AI. AI also has natural language processing. It also has voice recognition. Even voice recognition is different from speech recognition. So one of the important things that you need to understand is, first, without going to any specific course on specific site, just research about these areas. Specifically, you can go to scholar.google.com, 100% verified source. There are research papers that you can check what research is going on in these areas, what is being worked upon. You can search upon that. Check what's happening in these areas right now. So when you go from research paper to research paper, just pick 3 research papers from the last 5 years and see what's going on. Then you can pick from where you want to go. If you want to go to a boot camp, you can go to a boot camp. If you want to go for a degree, you can go for a degree. But the ground truth is you can learn things on your own. Now, what happens is when you start learning, you can join various communities. Various cyber communities are also supporting data science now. There are data science specific communities as well. And once you do that, you start learning, you start like attending session as volunteer, then you start moderating once, you become a speaker at one session, then you can start creating your own videos. Like this is the experience which I'm sharing. If you're not planning to go for studies and you want to switch on your own, so you can start to create your own self brand. Then you can go for various certifications. So AWS has data science based certification. Azure has data science based certification. Why these platforms? Because cloud is increasing and expanding. So in next 5 years, everything is going to be on cloud. So if cloud is the way, you can integrate cloud with machine learning and see how major big techs are applying machine learning and what type of certifications you can do. In certifications, you can apply for financial aid. In Microsoft, they provide you financial aid. In different platforms like AWS also, they provide different ways through which you can apply coupons or you can use financial aid to do these certifications. And then once you are done with that, you can start putting it on LinkedIn, start connecting with people who are working in this domain, and that's how it goes. You learn, you apply, you network, and then that's how it is. The other way is to go for a learning program, which can be a boot camp or a university based program.
I think, yeah, it's right. That you have to learn the basics and then get the certificate. Yeah. One of the questions somebody asked was that how do we handle the ethical considerations of AI? Like I think many people are nowadays concerned about Alexa, Siri, listening to them and processing it. So I think it's more for this question is I think it's more for the developers and architects, but maybe you can answer it and based on your knowledge.
So they are saying like how ethical is the AI related data
How
that
do
we
yeah,
have.
how do we handle the ethical considerations of AI? Because sometimes customers and users, even though you have built the smartest app or functionality, but sometimes they are having privacy concerns or snooping concerns. So how do we handle it?
So in that scenario, your legal and your basically your team, which is like your basically your cyber consultants, cybersecurity consultants, and your legal teams, they come into picture because here compliance and privacy has come into picture. So when, let's say, if you are utilizing a vendor, so then you have to look for, let's say, vendor trust centers or vendors privacy statement. You have to go back and check with the vendors. If you want to store data on a specific area, then what you can do is you can look for what application you are building, where it is applicable, in what region it is applicable on compliance basis. If you're handling government data, then specific regions are chosen for government data. When you are building your own product, then you specifically need a legal counsel in your company, or you might have to hire someone to take care of these things, because there are certain aspects that a consultant can do. But beyond that, when it comes to the legal part, you definitely need to have a legal counsel or somebody that's working with you on contract. They can give you a broader picture of, let's say, how to process information, let's say GDPR related, PCI related, how to store, how to process, then how to further, uh, let's say, broadcast that information, what type of data centers you can utilize. Then if you are taking specific actions on your data, let's say you talk about different AIs that we have right now. So when we have different types of AIs right now and how they are processing information, somewhere there are certain terms and conditions that we always agree to. So we always have to read out those terms and conditions. Many times we just accept them as it is. It's important to read out the terms and conditions, how somebody is dealing with your data. So
Yes, I
these
think
aspects become important.
even companies has to be more transparent in their terms and conditions, like more explain in a better way that our algorithm, our data collection methodology is gonna use your data in these ways, and they need to maybe have a double consent opt-in to make sure that data they're capturing, and then when they share it with their the third parties or their subsidiary companies, I think it's very valuable for the user or customer to know, because today people are more fascinated by the word AI, but then when you tell them that we are using your DI for data for our AI processing, they get concerned and step back. And so many employees in the corporation as well, when we tell them we are using the analytics from your regular day-to-day work and log in to analyze your work, how you are doing, what project you're working on, they get so much scared that you're like, you are monitoring me. But actually we are doing that to analyze the different behaviors that bot versus human have. So
Exactly,
there's
exactly,
always a fine line we have to trade between the better security versus also handling the ethical considerations from the employees also.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, I think it was very wonderful presentation, and many people did like your example of Python. Yeah, it's a popular language, and our some of the attendees, pen testers, and developers are using it, and so I think they had somewhere they mentioned that they also using PowerShell and other plugins. So I think yeah, any scripting language you use, main goal is to I think do proper analytics that will help you whether it's a business use case or cybersecurity.
That's true. Thank you so much, Dhaval, for explaining it
Thank
so
you very
well.
much. No problem. Thank you very
Thank
much
you, Alpha.
actually for giving your time. The way you presented entire stuff in like just 45 minutes. It was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate that. And you guys doing a great job.
Thanks.
No worries, no worries. We always here, and we always will welcome you for any of our talks. And the way you are nicely explaining in small, small little terms, and then building a base of the presentation is nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Neil and
You're welcome.
Sure.